Hey viewers, this is my third video for the HapaUnited channel, and today I wanted to start off with a piece of writing from Memoirs of Queer Hapa number 2 by Jackie Wong. The piece is called Why Love is Important for Mixed-Race Queer People and Everyone Else. Why it is sometimes hard to love ourselves. Because we are taught that we are not valuable, that we are unpure, that we are not authentic enough. Because we are taught that to be mixed is to be weak and watered down. Because we are taught that to live between worlds means we have no place in the world. Because we are taught to hate ourselves, our bodies, and our sexuality. Because we are taught that to be out means we risk physical and psychic violence every day, and we already feel confused and alienated enough as it is about our racial identity. Because we are taught that we must hide and conceal parts of ourselves, which weakens our possibilities for resistance. Because we are taught that if we don't choose between adequate categories, we will not be recognized or acknowledged. Because there are few stories or things written to validate our existence and experiences. Because people pretend that people who live between worlds and cross boundaries don't exist. Because people ask us what we are and don't want to accept what we have to say. Are you a boy or a girl? Are you gay or straight? What race are you? Because when we are accepted, it is often for our exotic qualities or novelty. Because our ambiguous sexuality, gender presentation, or race makes people nervous. Because part of our identity may be subsumed by another part of our identity, and we lose part of our culture, language, and heritage. Because we may experience racism intimately when one family member is racist towards another family member. Because we are sometimes banned from seeing part of our family because of racist attitudes. Because we sometimes lose access to our families altogether when we are open about our sexuality or gender identity. So once again, that was Why Love is Important for Mixed-Race Queer People and Everyone Else by Jackie Wong. And today I wanted to talk about sort of the intersectionality between queer identity and mixed-race identity. So as someone who identifies as both being queer and mixed race, I wanted to look at the similarities between those two parts of me. In efforts to be more articulate and thorough with this topic, I've written down some points, so excuse me if I'm not looking at the camera and reading some of them. To start off, we have the two terms of queer and Hapa. Both of them have been used to other people within these communities. So we have queer, which has been used as an insult towards people of the LGBT community, and you have Hapa, which means half, and it's originally a Hawaiian term, and you connected the term Hapa, which means half white, half foreign. So once again, just signifying how people belonging to these groups laid outside of the norm. Nowadays, both the terms queer and Hapa have been reclaimed by those communities, and queer becoming a sort of umbrella term for people of the LGBT community, and Hapa signifying people that are located between multiple races. Within American history, the Hapa Asian community has encountered difficulties coming into existence because of immigration and anti-miscegenation laws, and with the queer community you have had religious institutions and medical institutions that have othered and set queerness as being something deviant, and it was actually classified as a mental illness at one point. So I identify as both being queer and Hapa, but when you look at a lot of organizations today, you will have your queer organization and you'll have your Hapa one or your Asian American one, and there's not always a lot of crossover between these two or dialogue. When I was in college, it was the first time there was an actual queer community, because I didn't have that in Hong Kong with high school, and going there I still felt like I remained on the boundaries, and like there weren't people with my similar experiences, because the queer community there felt centered around whiteness. Even though there was a queer people of color group, it was mainly Latino focus, or for African Americans who identified as queer, rather than Asian Americans who identified so. Then when you look at mixed race organization or Asian American ones, it really is predominantly from a heterosexual, heteronormative perspective. So jumping back to the piece of writing I read for you, Memoirs of Queer Hapa #2, one of the other works that the author looks at and analyzes from a queer perspective to see the connections between a queer identity and a mixed race identity is this list written by a clinical psychologist called Maria P. Root, and the piece is called 50 Experiences of Racially Mixed People. I'm just going to read through some of them and then comment on how these experiences of mixed race people are similarly felt by those who identify as queer diversely. So, you have been told that you have to choose and you can't be both. Can't be Chinese and white, you have to pick a side, whichever one you more identify with. So the same has been said for people who identify as bisexual, because within the queer community there are times that they aren't even accepted. They're said like, oh, it's just being selfish, or some people don't even believe in the existence of bisexuality because they say it's just a stepping stone for people who are too afraid to really come out. So next, your ethnicity has been mistaken. For the queer community, there are a lot of people who have either had their sexuality mistaken, there's like people just automatically assuming that they're straight, or for people that are genderqueer, so people assuming that like, oh, they are a woman, assuming that they are a man. Next, you are accused of not acting or wanting to be Asian. So this is connecting to a lot of the internalized racism that people have, where they would view whiteness as something better, so not accepting part of yourself. And within the queer community, you have those that are accused of being too straight acting, not wanting to identify with their queerness, or people who accuse of trying to act more masculine or feminine. Being told that you don't look Asian, so the same can occur for queer people, being told like, oh, they don't look gay, they don't look lesbian. The what are you question, so you can get this for race, you can get this for sexuality, you can get this for gender. People say things that they might not have if they knew how you racially identified. So, just assuming if people didn't know that I was white and they could just be hating on white people around me, or even here in Japan, if someone makes a somewhat racist comment about Chinese people and they don't realize that, oh, I'm part Chinese. You have the same sort of thing for people who say, like, that's so gay, and, like, when they don't realize that the person next to them actually identifies as queer, and that is insulting to them. You have repeatedly been the recipient of stares from strangers, so people not being able to figure out your race, people not being able to figure out your sexuality. You've been asked about your racial heritage as an object of curiosity. People being very intrigued about, oh, you're mixed? How is that? Same thing can be said for people being interested in, like, what's it like being gay, what's it like being queer. For both queer and mixed race people, the issue of authenticity comes up. Whether you're not accepted as really being white, you're Asian, or whether you're not really accepted for being gay. You've been treated differently by relatives of your parents because of your race. You may have encountered this in some family reunions, that they won't really think you're the same because you're only half, you're not full, whatever. And the same thing can be said if you're out about your sexuality, then they may treat you differently. And then you have the whole idea about passing for white, passing for straight. There's this idea of concealing parts of yourself because of fear of how others will treat you if they find out what or who you really are. Okay, so that was a whole lot of stuff and probably still really inarticulate, and once again I have left this video to the night before. So please, in the comments below, if you want to share any of your personal experiences, if you identify as both queer and mixed race, on how you think these identities intersect with each other, or how you think they're similar or different. Anything else, I'll try responding to your comments when I can. See you in another couple of months. Alright, bye!